You know, usually when we talk about solving a really massive, deeply entrenched environmental crisis, you kind of expect the solution to look a lot like, well, brute force.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We tend to default to heavy machinery. It's that standard command and control approach to environmental disasters.
Exactly. Take the chronic, like decades-long smog and wildfire crisis in northern Thailand. I mean, if you've ever seen the photos, the smoke gets so thick it can literally ground
Oh, it's
flights.
completely devastating for the region.
Right. So you picture fleets of fire trucks or, I don't know, massive water drops from military helicopters, or maybe just incredibly strict criminal laws and harsh fines for any farmer caught burning a field.
Yeah, we try to fight the fire by throwing massive state budgets at it. And historically, that top-down punitive approach, it just creates a cycle of frustration.
But what if I told you that the ultimate solution to clearing the air in northern Thailand isn't more fire trucks? And it definitely isn't more red tape. What if the key to solving this environmental disaster is actually a plant that historically was heavily restricted and, deeply stigmatized?
It sounds completely counterintuitive on the surface. A historically controversial plant stepping in to do what decades of firefighting budgets and strict laws just couldn't pull off.
I know. And that is exactly what we are getting into today. We're looking at this incredible deep dive research analysis and a mind map focused on integrating the hemp value chain into the local creative economy policy in Ma Hong Son, Thailand.
It's really a brilliant case study because the researchers went into this mountainous region and actually looked at the entire ecosystem of the problem, rather than just treating the symptoms.
Yeah, and our mission for you listening today is to unpack how traditional wisdom, when you combine it with smart, flexible policy, can do three seemingly impossible things all at once.
Which is no small feat.
Seriously. It can transform a marginalized community, it can plug into the global economy, and it can simultaneously solve a massive environmental crisis. I mean, this is a literal blueprint for bottom-up economic and environmental transformation.
It really completely redefines how we should think about government intervention and, local empowerment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even touch on saving the environment or generating millions of dollars in revenue, we have to start at the absolute root of the issue, which is the people.
Always.
Right. Like, how do you implement a major government initiative without completely alienating the locals who actually live there?
That is the million-dollar question for any policymaker. And it's where most grand initiatives fail, frankly. What's amazing about this research is that it did not start with some massive, sweeping national rollout.
Oh, really?
No, the target group in My Hong Son was microscopic. They started with just 35 Hmong farmers who had permission to grow hemp.
Wait, 35 people for a regional pilot program? That is incredibly targeted. Yeah.
Very targeted. But, these were not random recruits pulled from a registry or something. They were chosen specifically because hemp is deeply woven into the Akamon traditional way of life.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we are talking about generations of using this plant for weaving intricate textiles and for traditional herbal medicine. Cultivating it is basically in their cultural DNA.
So rather than rolling into a village and trying to teach seasonal farmers a brand new, highly complex skill, the researchers were just leveraging an expertise these families had perfected over centuries.
Exactly. And to understand how to leverage that, the researchers use something called the 5 Capitals model.
Okay, what is that?
It's a framework that looks at a community's resources across 5 distinct pillars. So you have population, which is your demographic strength.
Makes sense.
Then economic, which is your actual financial funds.
Mm-hmm.
Natural, so your land and water. Skills, meaning the technical abilities. And finally, social capital.
Let me push back on that last one, though, because economic capital makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Natural capital, obviously, you need good soil. But social capital, if I'm playing devil's advocate here, that sounds a bit like academic fluff.
I get that a lot, actually.
Right. Like, how do you take something as abstract as trust and use it to build a concrete government policy? Can you even measure that?
You can measure it, and they did. To your point, social capital isn't about bank accounts. It's the community bonds, the shared history, and these networks of trust passed down through bloodlines.
Okay.
Before launching the broader initiatives, the researchers surveyed 380 stakeholders across the region. We're talking farmers, local government officials, and entrepreneurs.
A pretty diverse group.
Very. And they proposed the idea of developing hemp, specifically for health and herbal products. The result was a massive 70.93% approval rate.
Wow. If you're listening to this and wondering if that's a big deal, I mean, getting 70% of almost 400 people to agree on where to go for lunch is hard enough. Getting them to overwhelmingly support a government initiative involving a previously restricted crop is practically unheard of.
It is a phenomenal metric.
Mm-hmm.
And that number is high precisely because the policy seamlessly aligned with the Hmong's traditional way of life.
Because it wasn't forced on them.
Right. When a government mandate arrives in a rural village as a single, heavily stamped piece of paper from the capital city, it feels like an imposition.
Yeah, it breeds paranoia. People wonder, who is really profiting from this?
Exactly. But when the policy is built on existing culture, trust reduces that friction. Culture basically becomes the bedrock of economic stability, not a hindrance to it.
I see the logical through line there. If you respect the heritage, you get the buy-in. But let's look at the harsh reality for a second. The moment those 35 farmers leave the safety of their tight-knit village to actually do business, they don't meet customers. They hit a massive, unyielding wall of government red tape.
Oh yeah. The regulatory landscape for hemp is notoriously brutal.
I can imagine.
You have rigorous regulations regarding specific plant strains. You have hard, unmoving limits on the allowed chemical extract levels, plus just constant invasive monitoring by multiple agencies.
See, I'm picturing my own experiences at the DMV, which is an absolute nightmare of taking a paper ticket, waiting 3 hours in a plastic chair, only to have someone behind a glass window tell you that you forgot to photocopy a utility bill.
A universal experience, unfortunately.
Right. So now imagine you're a seasonal farmer who is an absolute expert at reading soil and weather, and suddenly you're expected to navigate 10-page legal forms across 3 different agencies just to avoid going to jail.
Yeah.
That is a mismatch of skill sets that basically guarantees failure.
It does, and the researchers recognize that exact vulnerability. If you leave the farmers to face the bureaucracy alone, the project dies on day one.
So what did they do?
So the solution they implemented was establishing a local regulatory assistance and counseling center.
Okay, I am incredibly skeptical again. When I hear Government Assistance Center, I just picture another layer of that DMV nightmare.
Which is a fair assumption.
How did this specific center operate differently? Because normal government desks do not spark economic revolutions.
What's fascinating here is that they completely flipped the standard model. Unlike traditional bureaucratic desks that are entirely reactive.
Meaning what? They just wait for you to mess up.
Exactly. They wait for you to make a paperwork mistake so they can reject your application. But this center is radically proactive.
Proactive in what way?
The staff actually act as dedicated legal mentors.
Yeah.
They serve as a literal buffer between the farmer and the labyrinth of state bureaucracy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they handle the regulatory minutia, they make sure the strain limits are documented correctly, they fill out the multi-page forms, and they interface with that whole alphabet soup of oversight agencies.
That's huge. So they basically act as a pro bono in-house legal team for these 35 farmers.
Essentially, yes.
By taking on the liability of the paperwork, they absorb all that structural friction.
That is the core of it, because good policy removes friction for the end user. If the ultimate goal of this state initiative is to produce high-quality crop yields, you want the farmers focusing purely on what they do best, which is cultivating.
Right, you don't want them stressed out trying to decode legal jargon.
Exactly. The center protects the culture by handling the structure.
So if they have the social trust to grow it and they have the legal shield to stay compliant, they must be bringing this crop to market.
They are.
But that introduces a huge power imbalance, doesn't it? How do 35 tiny independent farmers avoid getting completely financially crushed by giant corporate buyers?
That's a very real threat.
Because, 35 guys showing up in pickup trucks to negotiate with a massive pharmaceutical company, they have zero leverage.
Zero.
Yeah.
And you've hit on the exact vulnerability that destroys most small-scale agricultural projects. The buyer dictates the price, and the farmer takes whatever they can get.
Right.
Which is where the policy introduces its next major structural pillar, and that's the central hub for collection and management.
Okay, my mind immediately goes to massive agricultural cooperatives. Is this like, I don't know, Ocean Spray for cranberries or Land O'Lakes for dairy? Like a system where the little guy gets a massive megaphone because they operate as a single entity?
Very similar concept, yeah. Instead of 35 farmers individually peddling their seasonal crops and inevitably undercutting each other, they pool everything into this central hub.
Okay.
And immediately, this creates economies of scale. It allows them to standardize the quality of the hemp, test it uniformly, and present a massive, reliable yield to major buyers.
So they're a much more attractive partner for a big corporation.
Exactly. But the benefits actually transcend simple economics. This economic pooling translates directly into political power.
Wait, how does pooling crops give them a voice in politics?
Well, suddenly they are not 35 disconnected individuals asking local politicians for a favor.
Right.
They are a unified, standardized economic engine. When they have that unified voice, they can go to the state and demand vital infrastructure.
Like what kind of infrastructure?
Things like better water management systems or improved transport roads down the mountains. And the state actually listens because this central hub can prove guaranteed taxable economic returns for the region.
So they can essentially say, hey, look at the verified revenue we are generating. If you build this road, we will double those numbers and pay you back in tax revenue.
Spot on. And this entire setup ties perfectly into Thailand's national BCG economy model.
Okay, let's break that acronym down for the listener. BCG stands for Bio, Circular, Green, correct?
Yes, that's right. So bio refers to maximizing biological resources. Green means doing it sustainably. But the circular aspect is really crucial here.
How does the hemp hub fulfill the circular part of that model?
In a circular economy, nothing goes to waste. Traditional farming often creates massive amounts of waste, stalks and leaves that just get thrown away or burned.
Right, just left in the field.
Yeah. But with this hemp initiative, the hub ensures that every part of the plant is utilized and monetized. So the seeds go to oil, the fibers go to textiles, the extracts go to medicine. The loop is totally closed.
That is incredibly efficient. But the state government still has to oversee all of this, right?
They do, yeah.
And we know how slow legislation is. If a problem pops up with the hub, doesn't it take years to pass a new law to fix it?
Normally, yes. It would take forever. But local authorities here utilize something called an analysis matrix.
An analysis matrix?
Yeah, it's a dynamic tool where officials constantly weigh the potential impact of a change against its practical feasibility on the ground.
So they aren't waiting for a federal committee to convene in the capital. They can adjust operations locally on the fly just to keep the hub moving.
That flexibility is exactly what keeps the engine running.
I love the efficiency, but I am still hung up on a glaring financial reality regarding the hub itself.
Okay, what's that?
Processing raw hemp into high-value goods, extracting specific compounds that requires millions of dollars. You need clean rooms, advanced centrifuge machinery, rigorous testing labs. Where in the world are 35 small-scale, traditional farmers finding the venture capital to build all that?
Well, they aren't. And that is the true genius of the central hub. They do not need to raise millions of dollars to build their own extraction labs. The hub acts as a government-backed matchmaker.
A matchmaker, okay.
Yeah. It pairs the traditional high-quality raw materials grown by the farmers with the existing advanced technology of the private sector.
Oh, they just partner with the private wellness and tech companies that already spent the millions building the labs.
Distributing the risk entirely. The farmers do not go into massive debt-building infrastructure they don't know how to run, and the private tech companies get a guaranteed, standardized supply of premium raw material without having to buy any farmland.
Wow. So it is a perfect symbiotic relationship.
It really is.
Okay, so let's look at the whole board here. We have the social capital securing the community. We have the proactive counseling centers absorbing the red tape. We have the centralized hub pooling the resources and partnering with high-tech labs.
Right.
What is the actual bottom line result? What does this mean for the farmer's wallet?
The economic leap is just staggering. The research shows that if these farmers simply sold raw hemp seeds on the open market, they would yield about 2,578 acres per acre.
Which is, that's survival money. It puts food on the table, but it isn't pulling anyone out of systemic poverty.
Exactly. But when that hemp is pooled in the hub, matched with private sector technology and processed into high-value products specifically, soft gel capsules the farmer's income increases by an astounding 6.7 times.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because 6.7 times, that is not an incremental bump. That is the difference between scraping by and building generational wealth. That kind of multiplier changes the trajectory of an entire family line.
It revitalizes the entire region. It's totally transformative.
But I have a huge question about the final product.
Sure.
You mentioned soft gel capsules. If the goal is to squeeze maximum profit out of this plant, why settle for food supplements? Why not process this hemp into actual pharmaceutical-grade medicine? Wouldn't a patented drug make significantly more money?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all comes down to market readiness and the cost of time.
What do you mean?
Well, developing a pharmaceutical medicine takes years. sometimes a full decade of clinical trials, rigorous FDA equivalent approvals, and massive upfront investment with a very high risk of failure.
Right. And a farmer living season to season cannot wait 10 years for a payout.
They absolutely cannot. Food supplements like soft gels are on a fast-tracked regulatory pathway. The time to market is incredibly short.
So they get paid much faster.
Exactly. This brings cash flow back into the community almost immediately. And that immediate injection of capital is what actually lifts a community out of poverty today.
It makes a difference right now.
Yes, it funds local education, it improves healthcare access, and it visibly reduces inequality immediately. A theoretical pharmaceutical patent a decade from now doesn't buy school books today.
That makes so much sense. Cash today is infinitely more valuable to a marginalized community than the promise of a windfall in 10 years.
Precisely.
So we've solved the poverty issue, we've built the economy. You still have to connect the final massive dot for me, though.
Okay, go for it.
How does a 6.7x increase in a farmer's income put out the chronic wildfires and clear the smog over northern Thailand? Because that was our original question.
It was. And to understand the solution, you have to look at why the fires start in the first place.
Okay.
The chronic wildfires aren't happening because people are just careless with matches. They're heavily driven by the traditional farming of low-yield crops, primarily corn.
Because corn doesn't pay very well per acre. You sell it by the ton for pennies.
Precisely the issue. To make a livable wage on a low-yield crop like corn, you need a massive, massive amount of land.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so farmers face immense economic pressure to continuously encroach on the natural forests, cutting down trees to clear more land just to survive.
And when the corn harvest is done, you have acres and acres of tough stalks left over. Renting a tractor to clear that mechanically is way too expensive for a farmer just scraping by.
So they burn it. It is the cheapest, fastest way to clear a massive field and return some nutrients to the soil for the next season.
So they aren't being malicious.
Not at all. They burn the residue out of pure economic necessity. But hemp changes the fundamental math of the landscape.
Because of the 6.7x multiplier.
Yes. Hemp requires a fraction of the land compared to corn. But because of this entire value chain, we've discussed the hub, the private partnerships, the soft gels, that small plot yields nearly 7 times the profit.
Oh man, if I am a farmer making 6 or 7 times more money on a much smaller plot of land, I don't need to slash and burn the forest next door to feed my family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The financial incentive to illegally encroach on the forest completely vanishes.
Wow.
Furthermore, because you are farming less acreage, the need to burn thousands of acres of cheap crop residue just disappears. You aren't putting out the wildfire with a helicopter water drop.
Right. You are putting out the fire by removing the economic desperation that forced the farmer to strike the match in the first place.
It's treating the cause, not the symptom.
So, what does this all mean? When you step back and look at this entire deep dive, it is a masterclass in treating root causes rather than symptoms. I mean, the symptom is the choking smog. The root cause is agricultural poverty and a complete lack of market leverage.
And you solve that root cause through a carefully constructed ecosystem. You cannot just have cultural respect, the social capital, without the structural support of the counseling center.
It falls apart without both.
Right. And you cannot enforce rigid top-down laws that ignore the traditional wisdom of the locals. It has to be an integrated, proactive approach.
It is brilliant, and it proves that environmentalism and economic development do not have to be enemies. When designed thoughtfully, they actually feed each other.
It is a phenomenal framework that could realistically be adapted in countless other regions globally.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, listening right now. We spent this time talking about how Thailand unlocked massive economic and environmental potential by changing their approach to a stigmatized plant. But I want you to look at your own world. Think about your own industry, your own community, or even your own company. What incredibly valuable asset, whether that is a legacy skill among your older employees, maybe a piece of older technology that leadership has dismissed, or a marginalized group of people in your network, what hidden asset is currently being suffocated by rigid, outdated rules and bureaucratic red tape?
It's a vital question to ask because organizations so often police their best, most unique resources instead of fostering them.
Exactly. If you applied the Mae Hong Sun hemp mindset to your own world, if you created a protective, proactive buffer to foster that hidden asset instead of just blindly enforcing the rules against it, what kind of 6.7x multiplier could you unlock in your own backyard?
It's definitely something to seriously consider the next time you encounter a seemingly unsolvable systemic problem.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive and for continuing to question the systems around you. We'll catch you on the next one.